You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. Going live. Here we go. Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back. Episode 61 of Maker That Money, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. I am Pooch of Repkord. With me today, as always, my trusty sidekick, Mr. Andrew Mayhall, founder of and co-owner of 3D Gloop. Welcome, Andrew. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great as always. How are you?
Great as always. That was very convincing. And with us are Melissa and Nate Apter of CookieCAD, our special guests today. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. You're coming from New York. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for being part of the discussion today. We've got a great episode teed up. I've got a lot of hard-hitting journalistic questions that I want to ask you guys, each more intense than the last, so be prepared for that. But before we dive in on that, we got to do our housekeeping, right, Andrew?
Oh yeah.
So I didn't warn Nate and Melissa about this, but you guys, we always share a win for the week because we're a positive energy podcast here. So you guys get to think of something good that happened. It doesn't have to be business related. It can be business related. It can be personally related or whatever. And Andrew's going to go first, as always, so that you have a little bit of time to think on it. Unless he wants to defer, in which case I will go first. Your choice,
No,
Andrew.
I got this.
You got it.
I
Andrew's
got
got
this.
it. Andrew's got it. Meanwhile, if you're in the chat, share your win for the week, please, with us as well.
I could share wins.
Good. Okay.
I mean,
You want the more relatable one or the nerdy one?
We'll take as many wins as you've got, Nate.
Well,
you want to lead off then for us? Let's give Andrew a spare him.
Yeah, Andrew's trying to think of a win.
Yeah.
Well, our new Elixir line came into stock this week.
Ooh.
Tell
us about that.
Available now. Yeah. It's a new shiny, sparkly line of filament we have.
That's exciting. Okay.
And then
awesome.
What's the nerdy one? Or was that the nerdy one?
The nerdy one is that after a lot of work, we figured out how to get the STLs that are coming out of CAD and our CookieCAD software to be manifold.
Ooh.
Oh.
Totally.
That is a nerdy win, but that's awesome.
Yes.
Manifold is always good.
We're having a lot of triangulation issues, and we found a good solution.
So
Nice.
we haven't actually gotten into the details of what CookieCAD does yet, but Nate is alluding to some of it. So they sell filament in the 3D printing world, and they also have some really cool software package that we're going to dive into in a second. But those are awesome wins. Thank you for sharing those. Andrew, you're up. What's your win?
Well, guys, I mean, I think I gotta go with the win was I didn't have to go first this week.
That's a
right?
fantastic win. we had our guest.
No.
You're welcome.
my actual win is we actually got some really awesome new equipment in that should help with streamlining production and increasing the overall capacity for Gloop. So that was awesome.
Automation tools and things that make our production lives easier are just like such the best wins, man. I love that. I'm happy for you on that front. That's great.
I love hearing about your lab.
Yeah, it's awesome. On my front, I'm gonna just take school's out for summer, baby. The kids are off, so it's like a win and a terror all at the same time. It's a win for my kids, so I'll give them that win. But honestly, as they've gotten a lot older, like they are just infinitely more fun to hang out with. So we got some good summer plans coming up, some camps.
Awesome.
We're massively into board games and puzzling, and so I'm excited to actually just be outside more. We've been doing a ton of paddleboarding. I live around I'm very spoiled. I live at a lake, and so we've been getting out on that lake almost on the daily, it seems.
That's awesome.
At least I have.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's my win. That's where I get zen.
Days are left.
What's that? How many days you guys have left?
I'm saying when the kids come home, they give me the count.
Yeah. So what do you guys at? So now
another week.
Oh, about a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice.
all right. So we've been bouncing around this, but why don't you guys give us the background story, the origin, because I know you both have kind of some unique business backgrounds already, and then how you guys came together, and also you have how many kids do you have, and what's life like for you guys right now? There's a lot there to unwrap.
So when my son was about 3 or 4, Nathan came home from a maker fair, the one in Queens, and I think he saw Crucia there. I think you met Joe that time.
Yeah, they were a little company. There were a few little like 3D printer booths. It was when it was just getting started. They all looked like, they all looked like Frankenstein machines.
Anyway, he came home and he wanted a 3D printer, but they were upwards of $1,000 at that time. And he's like, he thought he had to like beg me or something. He's like, please, can I get one? I can make you cookie cutters. This one person is.
I was just looking for I was just looking for like an excuse, like some kind of justification to spend $1,600 on this.
Ooh, that's how much. Anyway,
She didn't even know how much it was. That's right.
I was a pastry chef at the time, and I was making custom cakes and cookies. So he's like, oh, I could make you any shape you want, cookie cutter. You can use it for your designs. So I was like, do whatever you want. You're allowed to have hobbies, because he had a full-time job at that time. He had a software company with his mom. Anyway, he came home, got this printer. It was insane looking. Wires everywhere. And I'm like, are you sure that's not going to blow up our house? But he got it going, and I'm like, well, now that you have it, I do have an idea in mind, and I needed this like captain's wheel for a cake, and it's a very intricate design with like lots of curves and grooves, and no one sells a cookie cutter like that. So I gave him an image, and he made me a really, really terrible cookie cutter, but it worked, and I put it on the cake somewhere. I have the cutter.
Oh, you have the cutter
somewhere. I should get it. I should bring it to our shows. It's like flimsy. It can and it's not TPU. It shouldn't bend. But anyway, I put it up on my website, and I got like a lot of messages. Where did you get that design? How did you make it? So I opened an Etsy shop and started selling cookie cutters, ones that fit my design. So I would like post the cakes and then post the images, and I started selling. So after a while, he got annoyed that he had to keep modeling the cookie cutters for me. So he wrote me a script, as all programmers do.
Yeah.
So that he wouldn't have to do all that work every time. So he made me my little script cookie cutter maker while he still had his software company.
The benefits of marrying a nerd right there, huh?
Yeah.
And then once he sold the company, he's like, well, I've never worked for anyone. How do I go to having a boss? Let me just mess around for a while and figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's do the cookie cutter software. He's like, no one's going to need it. I'm like, I'm telling you, I go to shows. I go to CookieCon, and people there.
CookieCon's a thing? Where is that? I need to go to that.
It's like Murph's.
Yeah, okay.
Like 1,000 women and 3 men. And they nerd
out
over cookies.
The opposite of Murph.
It's
now I have multiple reasons I need to go to this. Where is CookieCAD? Let's stay on this for a second.
The next one is in Florida.
It moves around every few months. They try to find different areas to help people get there easier.
Yeah.
So a lot of people there were starting to buy printers to make cookie cutters. There was a big market. And so I thought other people would need this software as well. So we launched it right before COVID. And
it was around that. Yeah. I mean,
we launched a year maybe.
Yeah. The first thing we did was we just sort of released it for free. And that version's still free, just to make cookie cutter STLs with from an image. Right. So you could draw an image, upload it, and it will just create the cookie cutter STL that you can download.
So we called it CookieCAD because it was cookie cutters plus CAD software, but all you need to do is upload your line art, your images, and it makes the whole model for you, and then you can just go print it.
And if you guys want to
Wow.
check this out, there's a link in the description to their website. It's directly on the website, right? It's a browser-based
Yes.
setup.
The first 3D printing exhibit that we did was at CookieCon, not at a 3D printer show.
Yes.
Which is,
we went to CookieCon. We had a 3D printer. We were blowing everybody's minds.
right. I mean, that's such
People
that's
support
a
that.
great way to do it.
Everyone's using Fusion, and these people that are making cookie cutters, they're bakers, they're pastry chefs. They don't care to learn how to 3D model. They just need what they need quickly, and so that's what CookieCAD started as. It has a lot more applications now. Cake toppers, clay, a lot of polymer clay makers use it.
Ceramics.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that led into the filament, and you can explain how that happened.
Yeah. So I was selling cookie cutters, and I wanted them to be pretty.
Of course.
So I had like 2 colors that I really liked, and the filament was always out of stock, and a lot of the other shades, like it wasn't the right shade of pink. I'm like really weird about that. It was like pretty, but not pretty enough. So I'm like, I wish I could just make my own filament. And then,
I mean, she was, as a cake decorator, she's always been working with color. She airbrushes the cakes. And so she's got this like eye for color. And like most of the companies that were making filament were just at the time, it was like red, green, blue, and they all had,
sure.
And it was all like just sort of like, engineering type firms that were just like, okay, let's make some consumer filament. But it was not, there weren't like nice colors. The only gradients out on the market.
There were a few companies. They were a lot more expensive than I wanted to spend for the time. I think
at the time
my business wasn't very big.
We had like a mint green and a pink we liked from Hatchbox or something, but that was it.
And they kept getting sold out. I couldn't, because I don't know why.
I remember when I was first getting started too, my frustration would be around like even batches of the same supposed color wouldn't match like
different
between
variations.
So obviously you share a similar trajectory as we did, where it's like you identified a need and you said, you know what, it's just going to be better if we control as many of these variables ourselves. And so necessity birthed the business for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it was really basically when we started, it was kind of like we were just kind of running a few different experiments, at the same time. And we're like, hey, what if we just put some filament out there? And so we looked for someone to work with that would like make the colors and designs we want. The only transitions on the market at the time were just rainbows. There were a bunch of different rainbows.
Yep.
That was about it. And Melissa was like, well, what if we just did these 2 color variations? And that's where, one of our first transitions we did was like the unicorn and the mermaid. And there wasn't really anything much like that out there. And then they started getting really popular and it started picking up. And I initially I thought, I'm like, oh, the filament's, a bit of a side hustle. We'll put some filament out there and we'll see what happens. But it's been growing like crazy.
That's
awesome.
What I think is awesome to hear, and where I see some of the best, most successful businesses as they grow that are leveraging 3D printing in some kind, it's looking at that tool set and how do I apply it to another community that has just a massive following, and what is the value add for you guys? You identified very early the people that are into this, the culinary arts, the baking and all that stuff are not tech people. Right. And so how are you bringing something to them that's novel? Of course, they're going to want to do business with you, given that you have this expertise and background in that whole thing. And I imagine, was there anybody else showing off 3D printing when you went to this first CookieCon?
There was not. A lot of the companies selling cookie cutters were utilizing 3D printing, but they would bring their cookie cutters 3D printed. And then we would actually bring printers, and people would be like, oh, that's how it's done. And then they really got into it. So,
I mean, these people were spending a ton of money on cookie cutters, because anytime, if you're a baker and you get an order and you need to make 100 cookies, you're probably cutting those out, each shape out by hand.
Yeah.
But if you have a 3D printer, you put in the shape you want, 20 minutes later, you can just boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And then we have these people who are doing ceramics, polymer clay jewelry, it's all the same sort of thing where they just need to cut out specific shapes.
Yeah. So you're creating the tool, and I love it because it's like, I call it the Levi Strauss model. You're selling pickaxes and jeans to the miners, not mining for the gold yourself. So you've identified a business need, and you're making their life better because they're not having a hand cut. So obviously there's a massive B2B value proposition in offering them better tools to do what they do.
And I really like what you're saying about like going into various other industries. I feel like that's really, each time there's another little boost on the 3D printers, it's just some other area where people have figured out this could use some custom on-demand items. And then every time one of those areas gets identified by someone, suddenly there's all these people that have a need.
Yeah. And it's interesting as a tool set. We talk about 3D printing all the time on this because that's kind of our background, obviously, as well. Even though we talk about general maker entrepreneurship, it's one tool, but never before have we seen anybody like get like a community center around a tool in the way that they do around 3D printing. Like there is no drill press community. I keep saying there's no bandsaw community.
No bandsaw, no table
there's
saw.
No table saw
community.
Yeah, there's woodworking, but they're generalized to entire tool sets, right? Not like one particular tool. So it's like at the heart of it, yes, the printer is just a tool and it can have application in a number of different areas. You guys have identified a great use, right? Very quick and easy customization at low barrier to entry as compared to historically having to injection mold something and pay thousands of dollars for a mold or whatever else, it might be. Or like you said, bakers have been hand cutting these things or probably hand bending, metal cookie cutters or however that, was done, stamping, forming, whatever that process was. So really cool application. I've actually talked to a couple of people, and I've always been amazed that there's a number of companies that I know that do like cookie cutter subscription boxes and the amount of money that is in that. Because obviously, it's like on a monthly basis, you can drop like, we've got St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and so we'll do themed.
Right, every holiday.
Every holiday.
There's a 3D printing subset community in Cookies. There's their subscription boxes. There's a company that has a subscription to STLs, cookie cutter STLs, and they drop.
Oh, interesting.
Every month,
It's just STLs. That's wild.
Yeah, they'll design the cookie cutter STLs. So like, I don't know, a unicorn holding balloons, a set of numbers, for cookies, because cookie decorating has really become its own art
form. Who knew the cookie decorating community was so advanced? Leading the way. This company, this subscription model, like predates, Cinderwing and all the all the Dragon subscriptions
and the Patreon.
Yeah. Well, and now that we've got stuff like chocolate printing coming online, and we've seen sugar frosting.
I've been telling Ellie that she needs to be at CookieCon for
She should totally go to CookieCon. I mean, it's got to be on her radar.
That's where her customers are at.
Yeah, man. But just the opportunities around just like the culinary world and all that stuff, and what that unlocks on the artistic side, and not just the artistic side, but obviously the getting into a more efficient production mechanism, right? My shop is located next to a cabinet maker, and last year he bought his first like automated CNC platform, and he was just like, I can make a set of cabinets in like a day that took me like a week. Like it's amazing, all these industries that are realizing like, oh my God, automation tools enable a whole different caliber of business, right? And so I'm sure that exists in baking and all these other spaces as well, right?
Yeah.
So okay, more or just go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, I was curious if we can dive in a little bit on the early days on the software side. So Nathan had a software company, right? And so like, could you kind of elaborate a little bit on kind of why you decided to go this route a little bit more, or
for sure, So my background was in software. That's always been my background. I mean, I think I got like Visual C++ as a bar mitzvah present.
That's a solid present right there. The gift that keeps on giving.
So I've been coding for a long
I did
time.
not know that.
I think my first experience with it was some library book where it was like, you can just go on the computer. My mom through work had a computer when I was a kid, and it was a monochrome green and black screen. And so that I've been doing for a long time. And then what happened was when I finished high school, I did like a summer thing, and I wrote a program for my mom to scan in paperwork. And she went to some trade show, kind of similar to like, I guess how we started here. She went to a trade show, and she was like, this was in 2000-ish. And she was like, everybody's using paper. There's a market for the software to help them scan it in.
She was in healthcare billing.
Okay.
She had a medical billing company.
Okay.
So there was tons of paperwork needed to be scanned.
Yeah, I mean, she had filing cabinets. Every healthcare facility just had tons of filing cabinets.
You created a virtual filing cabinet.
So you went into
the little icon.
You went into your doctor's office, and there was just tons of filing cabinets. Everything was paper. And people's reaction to switching from paper to electronic was kind of similar to what people say now. Why do I need that? No, that's the way I've been doing things has been fine. And so were like, she's like, we should launch this. So I kind of put college on hold at the time, and we started this new company. So she had her medical billing practice. We started a software company called MedForce Technologies. And we rewrote the software so it could be marketable. And then we grew, we hired other people, and
we added workflow management.
Over the years, we added a bunch of other packages. We had a business process management suite. We had a
in the healthcare
various EDI stuff, just other things that kind of fit into our business efficiency. Kind of it grew into a little bit more over time. And it was just early days was just scanning paperwork. Eventually, that became a little bit more commoditized. We added business process management and various other things that went around it.
E-signature.
Yeah, okay. And then yes, that's true. We did sell the e-signature software just before, a few years before COVID, and then suddenly DocuSign blew through the roof.
Oh wow!
It could have been DocuSign.
Yeah, but no. So in 2018, we sold that company, and I thought about sticking around in healthcare, but that life was very stressful. Like the software that we sold, because of the companies using it, we had to be on hand.
HIPAA also compliant.
Yeah, I read the HIPAA manuals.
Jeez, you read the glutton for punishment, man.
Yes.
Yeah. It was couldn't pay me enough.
So nearly as fun as 3D printing.
So 3D printing was a hobby.
Yeah.
That was my background, and and it was B2B, and I was like, but it was very stressful, right? I remember we had a company call us on the night before July 4th weekend, and like the afternoon, it was like 4-something p.m. and they're like, this thing isn't working, and we gotta have it up and running, and then like suddenly I have to be asking our people to work on the board.
No.
It's just awful. I hated
wow.
it. But there's no choice, right? These things were patient critical, and you got to be running 24/7. I thought about sticking in it for a little bit, and then while we were doing that, we took the cookie cutter software and made a free web version, and then we had a ton of people just being like, "Can we pay for this because we're using it for our businesses?"
Yeah,
and it was my first business to consumer kind of thing. Everything before that was always B2B.
But it does sound like it still is. Like the core business is like other people that are running a professional.
There's a little,
yeah.
Part of it is still B2B because they're using it for their businesses, but they're small businesses, so it's always like that one person.
Sure.
It's like
I mean,
it still feels like.
The small business model is much more like consumer than B2B. So for example, all of the 3D printing shows, because they're consumer oriented or small business oriented, are always on the weekend. Right. Our shows in healthcare were always during the week because everybody's on company time when they're there.
Right.
The people that we're dealing with are mostly the business owner, right? We're not dealing with some
Right.
you know,
Right.
someone who's like, 15 steps down the line and that sort of thing.
So I want to ask you guys, I think just for entrepreneurs in general, and we've talked to some partners before. Last week we had a duo that was on, and we've had other partnerships and stuff here. But it's not common that you get to talk to married couples that are in business together. And I would love to pick your guys' brains in terms of like what challenges that presents, but then also, the benefits of it and how you guys have navigated that over the years. Because it sounds like you kind of had your own things, and then you kind of came together. And is this the first like real like significant venture you've done together? It sounds like you've been in support of each other for a long time.
It came along organically. We didn't think that we would be here. I thought he would launch the cookie cutter software for me and then move along and do something else. But then I wanted the filament, and we were like, well, if it doesn't sell, we use it, because we had a print farm selling cookie cutters. So we were like, at least this way we could still use it. We're not going to be out anything. And that just took off, me designing, unique gradients like blue to pink that transitions through purple that people never saw before.
Yeah.
And so that really just, people kept eating it up. And so that kept growing. And then people wanted more features on CookieCAD. So we just kept working at it. And then COVID hit. And so now we have nothing else to do but work on the business together, because no one's going anywhere anyway. And that's when things really took off for us in CookieCAD. And it was, I think, the same difficult as, we were already in the lockdown living together. So it didn't matter that we were working together, because we were home together all day anyway.
Okay.
So it just kind of like worked.
I mean, there, it comes with its challenges.
When it started, it was fine though. And then
and now
you gotta be able to make that like work-life balance. You have to be able to somehow separate it. It's very difficult when you're working from home as well. And so after COVID, we did get an office, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Getting
so we
some
have
separation.
An office outside the home where we can go there, and I can, fulfill cookie cutter orders, or just work on other things. He can go code and take meetings. And that way, when we're home, we don't feel like, because I kept feeling like I was at work all the time. And then if the kids were out of the house, because I'm also still a mom, that's like my full-time job as well. So if I was home and I had like 10 minutes to catch up on reality TV, I felt guilty, like sitting on the couch and not doing work. So getting the office really helped like me mentally feel like I'm not always at work. I can also like take a brain break.
Yeah.
And we can also have a place to take meetings. We didn't do that here. Now we're home because our kids are away.
I've always called that separation of church and state. So I haven't been employed by anybody else for almost 20 years now. So before I did Repkord, I was a freelance web developer, and I found the exact same thing that you guys did. Like, I needed to physically get out of the house just to create that separation of space. The last two places I live, I just took like a tough shed and converted it into a little office outside, and just having that, 20 feet of separation, and psychologically like leaving the house and then, coming home.
I mean, it happens to be also while we were doing the business out of our home, the business spilled literally all throughout our home. There were 3D printers everywhere. And then the last filament shipment that we got, we were getting the filament shipments to our house and then shipping from our garage. And the last filament order that we got was something like 9 pallets, and somehow we fit 9 pallets in our garage. We have pictures of her like climbing over the boxes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a 1-car garage, and we have pictures of her like climbing over the boxes, like with little alleyways to try to like figure out where things were going. And then we ordered our first container, but we didn't have a warehouse, so I needed a destination. So the destination was our residential home.
Yeah.
Which
is a common starting point.
And so I'm like, yes, but it couldn't.
Scrambling to find a warehouse.
I'm like, there was no way that container could show up at our house.
Also,
the way it works
they were
is
like, you have 2 hours to unload, and we're like, how are us two, like a tiny human, how am I gonna unload pallets worth of filament? Like,
the way it works is container shows up, you have 2 hours to unload, and then it's gone. And where are we putting it? We didn't have, the garage was full. We had nowhere to put it. So then I spent we spent some time, and we desperately, literally, we got the warehouse, I think, like 2 days before it arrived at port, and then we're like, change the address.
Jeez.
Wow.
I mean, that's such a classic hustle story, because I remember a similar thing when I was in film. It's like I drive my pickup truck down, and then like it would load the bed down, and this was just one pallet of material, you know, and it's like, you're not, all these systems are set up for like warehousing, forklifts, like all this equipment that, you know, you just don't have. And so you got to figure out how to hustle when you're first getting started.
I didn't even know what half these terms were. I was like, what's a lift gate, you know?
Oh, yeah.
They're
like, well, you need a lift gate. I'm like,
you need
I
a
don't
lift
know.
gate.
How does trucks work?
So if we can, I'd like to dive a little bit into the business model of CookieCAD and like explore the ways in which you guys are making money, you know, out of this venture, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so could you guys like kind of share some of the, you know, like what you guys are doing in terms of, you know, it sounds like you have, you know, your CookieCAD software, maybe a subscription model. I know Melissa mentioned, you know, doing some sort of, you know, custom cookie cutters, you know, and then you have your CookieCAD filament. Are there any other things that you guys are doing to build this, you know, CookieCAD empire, if you will?
Yeah, what are the revenue streams, and what's the split on them?
Oh, sure. So when we first started, we basically, the way I kind of looked at it, I was lucky enough because we had sold our other company that I had some time to be able to figure out what works and what doesn't. So during that time, we kind of launched a whole series of I just call them experiments, just to see what works and what doesn't. So we had the cookie cutter software that we then launched as a premium model, with premium subscription options. So we had people paying for subscriptions it was a freemium model. So we had free features, we had paid features. We had the filament.
Wait, the paid features give you more advanced tools to create more unique designs.
Okay.
So, you can do like multi-cutters. So like, let's say you need a heart cookie cutter. It would be like 4 heart cookie cutters at once. You can stamp faster.
That's clever. I like that.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of other features that you might want to use that you can choose to pay for, or you can get the, you know, free version
for the power
of just the standard cookie cutter. And it works the same. It has the same quality as the premium features, but you know, some people wanted more designs.
Yeah, some good value add. Seems like it's a proven model, right? Like some try before you buy. Let people get it and then say if they want to go to more. That's cool. So what, if I can ask, what type of conversion do you guys see on, you know, people that are using and then actually convert to the paid, like percentage? Any idea?
So what's really interesting about that is when we launched it, the way that I did it was we had a free version and we had a few thousand monthly active users using the free one. And I figured let's add the premium. The first premium feature that I made, my thought was people were like, I'm getting benefit of this, let me pay you. I was like, well, we don't have anything for you to pay us for because it's free. So then I launched the first features that were premium. The first features, I figured there wasn't enough value yet. Okay. So what I did was I made 3 plans, an annual, a monthly, and a pay whatever you want, even 0. Despite that, a ton of people paid. It was really very surprising. There were all these people who just signed up for even the monthlies, and then people would pay what you want, and they would get 90 days access for that. But they could have paid nothing and gotten all the same features. I have never removed that. I plan to at some point, at least reduce it. But it's still there. And despite having a completely free option, at some point this year, or was it last year, the subscription for that broke 6 figures of revenue.
Wow.
Was just for the cookie cutters. Now it's not just in the US. We have people using it. I'll do tech support in other languages with Google Translate,
the beauty
which is nice.
The software being, it's a global sort of idea. We have Mexico, Australia, Spain, the UK, like really random countries where you wouldn't, I don't know, everywhere.
Wow.
So that's just the cookie cutter subscription. Now the other sort of experiments that we had launched at the time is we created a marketplace for people to create their own designs, and then we would make cookie cutters and fulfill them. That one was not a success. I did put a lot of effort into building it, but it didn't really take off.
Do not recommend, huh?
Well, the idea was that artists would be able to, have their shops open and they would be pushing their designs, and they wouldn't want to, have a 3D printer and run it. They'd be like, hey, you can buy my designs.
Right.
But
okay.
It didn't take off for one reason or another. I don't really know if we didn't, get in the right way, or people weren't pushing their own shops.
Sure.
What do you feel like the main learnings, the takeaways from that are? Because obviously that's not without precedent. There are models out there where people can
there are models. In fact,
leverage
I
this
was
type
looking
of
at like Cafe Press, Zazzle, and various other companies and how they price it. It's very possible, at least partially, it was a focus thing. We launched all these different things. We wanted to see what takes. That one wasn't taken as well. It's
maybe it needed more work.
Maybe it
that
probably
we didn't have time for.
I don't know entirely. It also didn't make I haven't done a super big postmortem on it because we had other ones that were working, and so we just kind of focused on what did work as opposed to what didn't work. If anything, I would say the lesson learned is do exactly that. Try more than one thing, and just go with whatever works.
We've talked about this before, and a lot of this goes back to like the writings of like a Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week, testing things out. He was a big advocate for like seeing if there's a market before you really invest a ton of energy in it. Obviously there's a balance to that, right? Because you can't just sell on vaporware. I mean, plenty of people do, but you need to put a reasonable amount of effort in. But you said something that really resonates, and I think it's a common theme that we've noticed, is that the focus, the F word. That is a big challenge, especially in the maker world, right? Because we all like have these great ideas and we want to do all of them. But as an entrepreneur, as a business operator, we find that can be absolutely devastating to your success when you got too many irons in the fire. So can you guys talk about that feeling for you? I mean, you gave us one example there. Have you felt the draw to want to try a bunch of other stuff, but are forcing yourselves to like stay a little bit more laser focused? What are you thinking?
Well, you want to?
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, we also sell bulk cookie cutters. So because we have a print farm, we're able to do that. So, we've gotten contracts from Netflix and Paramount Pictures.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
And Nickelodeon, doing like bulks for them, which is I do the packaging and the shipping and some of the printing on those. So that's been really lucrative at the time. Like we'll get a contract and it'll give like a huge amount of money at one time, but they're usually one-time deals. Like they're not coming back every month for cookie cutters because they'll have for a special event. So that's been really interesting, and it's given us some good money. But I recently said like we should probably pause this because Nathan is also building CAD, which is an easy to use CAD software, and he's passionate about that. He sees like a really good need for it. So I'm like, well, you can't be trying to get these big bulk orders and also writing software and running everything else. Like, we don't want to run out of our filament inventory, and for two people to run all these lines of business, it's been difficult. So even though that one is making us money, we're not sure that we have the time to focus on that one.
Sure. We talk about opportunity costs all the time too. A lot of times you just, if you're making one decision, there's only so many hours in the day. You guys are lucky that you've got, you know, you're a dynamic duo and you can kind of divide and conquer in some things, but obviously you're also parents and you want to have balance in your life and stuff too. So you're constantly trying to, well, if we do this, or what is it going to be at the sake of, right? So I think it's smart that you guys at least sound like you're having those conversations and those realizations, and where is the passion?
Yeah, you're not wrong. We've probably fallen into the same traps that everybody does, and when these sorts of things, we should be a lot more focused than we are.
Yep.
Part of it is just, you know, the creatives in us, and we like following fun threads.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the fun new project. It's always much more exciting than like the existing one, which is just becomes a matter of like logistics and filling out spreadsheets and emails, you know?
Yeah. Which, to be fair, I think is okay. I think we need to allow ourselves to, as makers, you know, the time to just do the for funsies stuff or to try stuff out, because like that's kind of what keeps you sane too. Like you said, a lot of what keeps the cash coming in and all that stuff is the non-glamorous stuff, right? Like, you know, doing the admin work, doing, you know, the purchasing, like all the things that none of us want to be doing, but are vastly critical to the, you know, ongoing success, the selling and all that stuff. Kemnerd in the chat mentions you guys are in Micro Center. Your product is in there, so you're actually, you've got some distribution out there.
Yeah, that was super exciting for us.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, Micro Center is a really great partner. We'd love to partner really with lots of 3D print stores. It's just hard to find them. Micro Center happens to have a whole bunch of stores. But we're in Ecovate in North Carolina. We're going to be in Texas Filament Supply. I think she's actually getting her first shipment today.
Wow. Wow.
So we're going to be in a couple of, you know, various other mom and pops that have single stores, but hopefully some of these individual 3D print stores will start to grow as well. I love brick and mortar 3D printing shops. I don't know, maybe I'm old fashioned, but I love it.
I don't know. There's something about seeing your product, you know, being able to peruse and come home with it.
Well, especially in your line of work, right? Like when you're dealing with people that are artistic and they like, you know, you can't glean the same thing from looking at the sample on the screen as you get when you're holding it and you can see the sheen and the way the light hits it and all that stuff, and telling the difference between mattes and glossies and all that. So, okay, so the revenue streams we talked about. So you obviously have filament sales, you have your print farm, your cookie cutter sales, you've got some software side of things. So you seem like you're reasonably diversified. And then you'd mentioned too, you're working on some new CAD software as well. Are you planning to monetize that in a similar freemium structure, or is that going to be different?
So that would be probably, that's my guess. You know, with the cookie cutter software, we kind of just saw it as it came. That was always the plan. And we kind of just waited for like that opportunity. Okay, what premium features can we put there? With CAD, that's kind of my idea as well. I figure what we'll do is we'll have something that's useful, a base level that's useful. The same way with the cookie cutter, you can do unlimited basic cookie cutters in there. We would have some base level, and then maybe we can come up with something. I don't have it yet, but I don't need it yet. You know, at some point we can come up with something that's like, okay, here is something that people would be willing to pay for, right? Here's something that would add value. Maybe businesses would see something that we could just make something a lot easier for them. CAD does have another alternative theoretical revenue stream, which is to just keep it free and then sell it to educational institutes. One thing that I found really interesting is that if you Google CookieCAD, the software, what you end up finding is a whole bunch, and I found this almost by accident. The first time I found it was because the software actually went down and it had some
What did you
people
find?
messaging us. What we found was that there's a ton of libraries that use CookieCAD to teach the 3D printing. And the reason that they do this is because they're able to, in the span of like 45 minutes to an hour, they can take somebody who's never seen 3D printing before, and they can say, okay, sketch out a design, and they can take them from design to model to slice to 3D print, and it's a fast print, so they could even go home with it or come back the next day and pick it up, and they're able to go from something a shape they came up with to a product in their hand, and our cookie cutter, it's a relatable object, and it's useful. It's not just a toy, and so they've just been doing these classes. They never really like reached out about it because it's just free, so they just found it and they went on and they did it. And there was a teacher that reached out, and she said they're using it in their STEM class. They have a combination of a business and the science stuff, and on the STEM side, they're using the 3D printers, and then on the business side, they calculate the cost of the filament and come up with like some kind of business. You know, the students are supposed to come up with something, and they were using the cookie cutter software kind of as their basis for.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense, and it's a really fascinating thing. And you kind of stumbled upon this, but just by mining your analytics at some point and saw where.
So the first time I found the education was when the software went down, and someone's like, "I'm teaching a class. When's it going to be back?" And I'm like,
okay.
Tell me more. And then I did it, and then it was just from some like Googling and some, mostly because, most of the people that are using it, they don't ever necessarily reach out. So I don't necessarily know, but if you Google library cookie cutter, you'll see a whole various libraries. I've found there's a library where you can go to them and they'll make you a cookie cutter. You just give them your thing, and it's one of the services they offer.
Wow.
Awesome. So I feel like all of our stuff that we've done has always been kind of with sort of helping people get into it, right? The cookie cutter software was because the bakers didn't want to use CAD software. And the filament was also just to help consumers use colors that they want to use, as opposed to just, because they want to have fun with it, right?
Right.
And CAD, so my dream after we made the cookie cutter software was to make a more general use kind of CAD software. And I was, and I had this kind of vision for a while. And then at some point I found some kind of open source MIT licensed thing that was licensed for commercial, that I was able to kind of use as well. And putting all these various pieces together, we were able to launch CAD, which is still not officially launched. We're still in a kind of our
baby stages,
baby beta kind of early beta stages. I do have a vision for what I want it to be able to do once it gets into past its beta. And I want it to be similar to the cookie cutter maker, where there's one kind of killer use case, something that you can do in there that makes it a lot easier that you couldn't easily do in other software. And I have a couple of ideas for that, and that's when we'll be officially released.
Nice.
Very cool.
Nice. So is that what you're looking at as the, I like to ask, I guess, when I talk to people that have multiple revenue streams, like, what's the growth lever, right? And so is it, when you guys are looking to the future, you investing in more of the software development? Is it a little bit, are you trying to like dole out a little bit of your attention to each of these verticals, or I don't know if it's a vertical, but you know what I mean, each of these streams? What's your strategy there? Or are you just kind of seeing where the wind takes you? It seems like you're kind of testing some stuff out, see how it feels.
It's a great question. It's actually a question that we ask ourselves every day, because whatever you do spend time on does take time away from the other. I can tell you that just the reason it's a big question is because we've seen, so the cookie cutter software has had growth. CAD is new, so we don't know yet. We'll have to do a real launch and then measure and see. And the filament has been growing, it's been probably more than doubling each year that we've had it. That's been seeing some more growth. So those are growing. Absolutely, those deserve attention.
Yeah.
The bulk cookie cutters are good for paying the bills. They bring in money. We have not seen growth, right? So basically what's been happening for the last like about 3 years is between September and the end of the year, we get inundated with end of year corporate just gifts, right? So people are like, I want to make a unique gift, send it to my employees, send it to my customers. They just want some kind of special gift and they want it to be custom, maybe their logo shape or maybe something that their company has some meaning for them. And the cookie cutter works because it's we do the cookie cutter on a stamp and it just like kind of it's in their shape, so it does the branding. So that one, you know, pays the bills, but it's not been growing. That one doesn't really, you know, I was thinking maybe we could grow that and have it work year round. We ran ads for it. And throughout from January through September, we get here and there, not much. And so, you know, what do we do about that? Do we shut it down? Do we continue to operate it on the side and it's a side hustle?
Yeah.
You know, these are great questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
Don't have easy answers.
Yeah, well, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? You guys, awesome. And we're closing out on a solid 60 here, so we got about 5 minutes left, just as a time check for you. I know time flies when you're having fun.
Time did fly.
Yeah. This is really, really cool stuff, and I'm glad to hear how much you've grown. I wanted to ask you one more thing about the filament, because that feels like it's such a saturated competitive space when you look at all the options out there. But I think in just hearing you guys talk about it, what's a neat point of distinction or a value add for you is obviously what you've done to market to that specific niche of, you know, bakers and all that stuff, or artistically minded, especially where the aesthetics are more important, because you're not looking to compete on value, you know, just like basic utilitarian product, right? Like it's like, I want unique, different color blends, stuff like that. What would you attribute your success there, given all the other options that people have? And you're not making the filament yourselves, right? So you guys are basically white labeling, which means even less margin for you guys on that stuff.
So yeah, we have a manufacturer making our filament. We, you know, tried out a few manufacturers to get a really good, you know, pellet. So we're really happy with the quality, and we try to bring it down as low as possible so that we're approachable, but we obviously also have to make money. So that's usually where our price point comes around. We're always nervous. Like, there's huge players in the game. Like, where do we fit in? Is this just going to end one day? You know? And so we're just trying to keep our, you know, I don't try to look at other companies, what they're doing. I really don't try to, like, sometimes we'll be naming our filament and find out, oh, this company has the same name, but it's just because we try not to see what other people are doing and just try to come up with unique ideas and push the industry forward. And now it's a great question. And, you know, as far as that, right, but there are a lot of companies out there in crowded spaces that have a market. And what it comes down to is what is the perception of your company out there in the market? And I think we've built a really good kind of brand awareness. Our first initial boost was actually one of our first, like, kind of like where we were like, oh, boom. We didn't even know what was happening at first. It was when these dragons got really popular, and then suddenly everybody wanted to transition filaments. And since then, since those days, there's an entirely, it's really like a new economy, right? Around designers releasing models, people making those models and selling them at craft shares and on Etsy and in all these places. And we fit into that model by making the kinds of colors and styles and stuff that will help them sell their product.
Right.
And so
that's very cool.
we're
constantly thinking about what, you know, people can use our colors for. And we try to listen to our customers, and they'll give us ideas of things they want. And
yeah, you know, filament is a consumable. So that means that people are repeat buyers. This isn't a one-time buy. We don't have to convince somebody to buy one time and put all of that, you know, kind of customer acquisition costs, and then they're gone. It's a repeat business. We have customers that are coming back again. And so when we're putting our product out there, what we want to do is we want to show we're accessible. We're here in New York. Maybe the film's not made here, but we're here. I do think that helps a lot when people are looking at, should I buy from Sunlu or from...
We stand behind our product. We're making sure the quality is always top notch.
The other thing is that the industry is growing all the time. And in a growing industry, their opportunity is kind of a little bit open, right? There's open opportunity. It is a crowded space. And so in a crowded space, you have to stand out. I can tell you that from a third-party perspective, when Micro Center approached us, what they told us is they said, we like the colors, we like the packaging, we like the box, we think it would look good on the shelves. So that's what we had there, right? In the sea of stuff at Micro Center, people like...
Oh, it shows really well retail. I've seen some photos of you guys in there and stuff. In a lot of ways, it's like wine marketing, right? Where it's like the prettier the label, like you're just trying to grab attention as somebody's walking by. And you guys you obviously have great design chops. You put a lot of energy into it. In fact, Melissa gave me a spool. I think it was at ERF last year, and it's one of my favorites. I've used it on a couple different projects, and it's some really good stuff. So check it out, you guys. If you haven't seen it, go to the website, take a look. But they're also in Micro Center if you want to go to your local place and just put it in your hands, see how it actually looks. It's great stuff. Awesome. Yeah. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys for spending the time with us today. That was really cool, and I'm very interested to hear how you guys do as you continue to grow and launch these new software ventures and all the things that I'm sure you haven't even thought of yet. I can tell the future is bright for you two, and that there is hope for other couples out there that might want to strike out on a venture together as well, so that you can maintain the balance and not drive each other crazy. And hopefully,
you had Courtney on recently. She works with her husband.
Yeah. Oh well, Chris is like next level amazing. They're an amazing pair. You've met them both, right? Yeah. So yes.
So it works on occasion. I'm sure. It also does sometimes.
We also do drive each other crazy. But
I think that's just par for the course with any couple, right?
That's the realities of any relationship, for sure.
Yes.
You guys, thank you so much. Have a fantastic time, everybody. If you're still,
it's a fun industry, and we can have fun.
It is like
those are fun.
The best. When here, let's get some plugs in real quick. What's the next event that people can catch you guys at?
Murph.
Midwest Rep Rap Festival. That's coming
up. Will you be there?
I'm not going to be there this year. I have a big family event coming up, and it's in the middle of summer. But I believe Murph is what it's end of this month.
June 23rd, right?
June 23rd,
I believe.
In
Andrew's gonna be there.
Unfortunately, Gloop's going to have to pass on this year. But we are planning on another big event just a little bit later.
Just around the corner. So stay tuned on that.
Yep.
I guess it's just going to be us in Indiana.
Nah, there'll be plenty of other people there. It's a good show.
People in the chat are going.
Mitch, are you going to be there with the backpack?
Mitch will be there. Yeah, good. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. I want to wish everybody a happy weekend to you. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and we will be back next week with another episode of Make Her That Money, where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. Until then, everybody, make on. Have a great weekend.
Little jobby trees.
Jobbies. Bye, guys.
See ya. Thanks for having us.